Reggae Interviews. Word Sound Power.
This is DJ745 for Reggae Interviews with a virtual link up to Addis Pablo. He's been blessing us with some fine music for a number of years and preserving the legacy and the standard set by his father, Augustus Pablo. How are we doing today?
Yeah, man. Give thanks for being here, you know? Respect every time.
Okay, so right now you're in New Jersey, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey at the moment. Mainly been here since kind of throughout the whole lockdown, really, because I was priorly supposed to go to a few tours in Japan, a few different places, but since then I've kind of been here with family, you know,
Right,
kind of
okay.
keeping it inside and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Okay. You know, the weird thing is that we've met a few times in Jamaica. We've never had a chance to actually sit down and reason. So I'm kind of looking forward to speaking to you about some of your releases to date and also some exciting projects that are coming very, very soon as well.
True. Definitely, man. Give thanks, you know?
And I
It's
think
far overdue, long overdue.
exactly. I mean, I'm just trying to think now. The last time I was in Jamaica, which was Reggae Month 2020, I'm sure that you actually performed up at Dub Club on a Wednesday night.
Yeah, the Dub Club Live. Yes,
Right.
that was one of the last events I did, because in Jamaica, really. Since then, I've done a few small things on this side. Like I went to Boston and Rhode Island for some small outdoor gigs, but that was one of the last live, you know, performances.
Yeah. And I guess that, you know, as a musician, you're desperately missing that live interaction with people.
Oh yeah, I mean, even just traveling on a whole, like the restrictions and the whole limitations of certain places and the times and everything. Even in Jamaica, it was very unusual because you kind of have to be inside by like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock curfew type of thing. So it's very unusual, you know. We're not really, especially in Christmas time, you know, there's so many things going on normally, so many events and just more than you can even go to everything, you know. But this time was very much a unique and a different experience.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that a lot of people are saying to me is that, you know, whilst we're living in this new world at the moment, one of the things that we've all really been able to connect with is our inner selves more and also family as well.
Yeah, because due to the speed and progress of modern life, many of us just had to be on the go, you know, like just doing whatever you're doing, working, traveling, whatever it is. And a lot of people, like you said, family-wise, you didn't get to see them, but now it's kind of pushing you or forcing you, in other words, to like be home or connect and reach out with yourself and with, you know, your close family and friends. So for that reason, I think it's good. I mean, it's sad that these things cause us to have to take that approach, but I guess it will remind us that we need to keep that going forward, you know?
Yes, for real. Now, I know that you've sort of like grown up spending your time between the United States and Jamaica. Is there family connections in New Jersey, which is why you're there?
Yeah, correct. My mom was born, or she's from New Jersey as well as I was actually born here. So I was born in New Jersey and grew up in Jamaica. So I have definitely a lot of her family. Some of Dad's family is more like in Florida, but definitely a lot of my mom's family here and close friends too.
Okay, so I guess it's great to be around family members in this time then.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's important to be, I think, around people that's familiar and that, you know, just who you're comfortable with and just the close loved ones, you know. So it's definitely important.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I want to sort of talk about some of your recent releases, and then I want to talk about some of the projects that are forthcoming later on this year as well. The one that sort of comes out into my mind instantly is a song called Rastafari Calling that was released on Ayashida's Nah Left Your Music, and I think the video came out in February 2021.
Yeah, that was released on the 19th of February, this year 2021, and we've worked on that track also for a few years. Initially, I remember this recording on the bingy drums that you can hear in the track, and I pretty much created the song to the drums, and then I had the musicians come in and play like the bass, guitars, and, you know, all the other percussions and stuff to it. So yeah, one is a joyful sound, and, you know, give thanks to be able to present it and have the video, which was filmed by Tizzy Tokyo, big up Tizzy, and, you know, we just we're happy for it to be out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, when I actually listen to that song, I know that it's the title piece on that rhythm project that she's got, Rastafari Calling. It's a very spiritual piece of music you've put together there.
True, yeah, man. It's really reflecting on the drums because, you know, as we know, the Naya Bingy drums is the foundation of our music and reggae music and ska and all these different things. And it's really a heartbeat music, which means that it relates to everybody. You know, it's not just limited to our Jamaican culture, so to speak. It's just every music has beats and everybody has heartbeats. So it's really spiritual, and just listening to the drums always gives me that type of feeling. So I reflected the same, you know, energy into the track.
I mean, I think one of the things I really like about your song On That Rhythm is there's almost like a sense of urgency in how you're playing.
True. Well, it's really, because as far as I remember, we did a few different tracks, and that was not the first version me and I did. We did some other ones that really, I wouldn't say didn't work out, but based on the production and things weren't matching. So when we finally got to, I think, meet up and do that, it was definitely like happy to get something, you know, that it just felt like this is gonna be the one, you know, to go. Yeah.
Well, I know that song's, you know, being played, you know, across the pond in the UK
Definitely.
and Europe as well. And alongside, obviously, your version On That Rhythm, there's also a great song by Sanchez.
Yes.
Carlton Coffee. So
correct. It's a very strong compilation. Big up Miss I. She's one of the, you know, just a close person I've known for some years now. I mean, she's done a lot of work with dub plates, you know, between Japanese and the Jamaican artists, and she's one of the best people, you know, that's in music. You know, there's not many people that you can say is like always nice or kind people, but she's definitely one of them, you know, very great woman.
Yeah, and I think that what she's sort of doing, you know, I have to give credit to her because, you know, some of the productions that she's released in recent years, in the time that I've got to know her, have been second to none. In that, I don't think she really spares anything as far as like getting the best musicians, getting the right engineers, and you know that anything that's coming out on her particular label is going to be A1.
Definitely, and you know what it also is, as I said, when music, a lot of times, everybody kind of works both on terms of the quality, but sometimes the personality of the person you're working with. So when you work with someone who you have a good chemistry with, or does you feel a certain, you know, connection with, then it opens up. You know, you're allowed to really be as creative as, so you give it the best, in other words. So she goes for the best, and then each individual, whether it be myself or artists or musicians, return that same feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that I know that you've been working together with I for quite a few years, but this is probably what I would say is the first official Addis Pablo release in working with her.
Oh yeah, this is definitely the first official one. As I said, we started a few others before, but upon listening and re-listening and things like that, and the Naibingi drum just felt like, yeah, this is the one to send out there, you know? At least first, you know, you never know what will come next, but definitely feel like a good start.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like there's going to be more works together with Nalefia Music then coming forwards.
Definitely, of course. Because I said, I is somebody that I've been knowing since, I'd have to at least maybe 10 years now. So,
okay.
So she's been in Jamaica a lot of time doing great works amongst the artists and even doing tours and a lot of productions as well, like you said. So she's been one of the ambassadors between, you know, Japan and Jamaica. And, you know, we give thanks for that because for myself, and of course, Rockers, Japan is like one of the biggest supporters and markets and like, you know, fans of the melodic and everything. So we're always happy to keep that connection between, you know, the Japanese people, whether they're in Jamaica or living in Japan or wherever, you know?
Yeah. Well, I guess that, you know, all you're doing is really continuing that special relationship that your father, I think, created.
Exactly.
With sound.
Definitely, because as you said, the Japanese market, for my dad, was one of the most receptive, I think, and there's a great famous Japan splash footage that's on the internet that I think most of his fans have seen performing Java, East of the Rhode Island, songs like this alongside the Soul Syndicate band. So you can see based on the reception of the crowd and the whole, that is like one of the strongest.
I know the one that you're talking about, I think it was around about 1985 or 86, I think it was.
Yeah, somewhere around that time, 86, 87. And he returned there for a few more big shows. I think that's one of the ones that was recorded, but he did a few great tours there. And, you know, there's always been a strong connection. Growing up, there was even a lot of some of the fans from Japan would come to stay with us in Jamaica, and he would record them, take them to the studio and all these different things, set them to the record shops. And yeah, so there's always been a strong connection, as you said.
Yeah. And I think that obviously you mentioned that obviously the video that was shot up in the hills around Kingston, produced by Tizzy Tokyo. So there's another connection there as well.
Well, actually, Tizzy, the funny thing about Tizzy Tokyo, she's not Japanese, you know. Most people would think that based on her name. She's actually from America, African American princess. You know, she's a great videographer and photographer. But the same thing happened to me. I did think that first her,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
the name. Yeah, but no, it's more of a, you know, it's more of a meaning behind it, not so literally as in Tokyo, like abbreviation, in other words, more acronym, I should say. It's acronym for for production.
Okay, well, that's good to know as well, because I think that when we do these reasonings with artists, musicians, there's always kind of like stories that sort of come about that it's good to kind of almost clear up and actually understand the true meaning behind things as well.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that I've always sort of found in my sort of time going back and forth to Jamaica is that there's a real sense of community, particularly within the roots music scene in Kingston. Everyone seems to be doing their small bit to continue that legacy set by the elders. How do you see things?
Yeah, definitely. It's for one, Jamaica on a whole is a place where there's like, what is it, 6 degrees of separation, I think, between everybody. So people go to school together. You know, people, there's connections that started prior to us even being, say, in music. Some people grew up together. Some people play football together, wherever it may be. So based on these connections now, when we start to do music, if I'm a musician or engineer or whichever roles we might take, we probably still have some form of interaction based on these connections. And even if not from there, based on the fact that you start doing music together, you start creating a connection. So we all interact with it at the same studio sometime or the same concerts, whether to perform or just to watch as, you know, fans and supporters. And it's a very connected community. Many of us, like I said, even for example, me and Jesse Royal went to high school together. So it's like, it's just to show you, that there's, and a lot of others are similar cases with people, you know, growing up together and then continuing to progress, whether they're working together every day, but just knowing that we're on the same mission, you know, overall.
Yeah. I mean, another brother that you've been doing some work with, Micah Shemaiah, you were featured on his rhythm project last year, The Lion of Judah, with amazing Singing Lion.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that it actually came out on vinyl as well. I mean, Micah, he's like really serious as far as his music is concerned. I see him being really fully focused on the message and not the hype.
Yeah, man, Micah is one of them artists who portrays the, you know, traditional sound and message, but still doing it in a refreshing, you know, manner in this time. So his voice is also a great singer, guitarist, and multi-talented, you know. So he definitely keeps that root sound, you know, on a modern take, but still traditional at the same time, you know. So it's like the balance, you know.
Yeah. Now, Addis, you play the melodica. It's a very unique instrument, which your father really made his own throughout his career, starting out in the early 1970s.
True.
Was that a journey you were always destined to follow?
I would say, you know, I guess people say destiny or things like that, but it'll be hard for me to say. From an early age, I always loved music, and of course, growing up around it, being fascinated by more equipment, like on the engineering side, actual like building, because, you know, it's the different keyboards and all the different gadgets and stuff that it have, amplifiers. So all those things kind of always intrigued me. So I was more drawn to that aspect at first, but as I grew older and I would start to actively like take up keyboards and things like this, play the instruments, I developed that attention towards it. Not at first, but because it's a big shoes to say the least, because that's my dad's instrument. It's kind of what made him, you know, and he made famous at the same time. So I was very cautious about approaching it and make sure I practice and really get a handle of it at first. So once I was able to start doing that, practicing more, going amongst his musicians or musicians that he played with, like China Smith and many others who helped to show me and, you know, tutor me along the way. So from there, that's when I kind of built up more strength in learning it and, you know, just kind of focusing more on it as I got older. This was around the age of 16, 17, growing up, you know. Now I'm 31, going to, you know,
Yeah. And I guess that obviously, you know, sort of growing up around your father and his musical colleagues, you were probably surrounded by music from a very, very early age.
Definitely. I mean, as early as I can remember going to the studio, there was always a studio at home. So artists, musicians, singers, DJs, you know, producers, also people from all across the world coming to link that for his music or to do business or whatever it may be. as I mentioned earlier, people from Japan, Europe, America, you know, whatever parts of the world. And whether consciously or unconsciously, I was immersed into the point where that's just, for me, that was reality. Like, I wasn't aware of any other form of life, you know, so that was just all I knew pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any like particular memories of childhood that sort of really sort of ring out in your mind at this moment in time?
Oh, there's so many. I think just moments together as a family, like me, my dad, sometimes her mom and my mom and my sister Isis would go to like just, you know, family stuff, go to the zoo, go to the beach. All those memories are close, you know. But of course, outside of that, just my dad playing his sound system on a musical level. Like, I just remember times where the bass and things like your belly's like floating, you know, you're trying to sleep. Not even trying to sleep, but you know, like the whole neighborhood is shaking, you know, and the rockers bass start to roll. So things like that was always a joy reflecting, and just all the memories shared with my father, of course, because the person he was to the world in terms of importance is just as important as he was to us as a father, and the personality, and that's who he was as a person, you know, a human. So we just cherish all the moments and always reflect on them, you know, through even playing another kind of way is a form of that for me, because like every time I play it, of course, I'll think of my dad, or if people see me playing it, it's a reflection of him. So that's a way for me to like continuously keep those memories, you know?
Memories, yeah, yeah. I mean, this year in 2021, we're actually celebrating 45 years after the release of King Tubbys meets Rockers Uptown.
Right.
This album, in my opinion, is the dub album. It's the one that's always up there within the top 5 of the greatest dub albums. How does that make you feel 45 years on?
Well, I mean, for me, the King Tubbys meets Rockers Uptown album is one of the, like, it's a quintessential dub albums, a pillar of just modern music techniques, especially coming out of Jamaica, as far as the remix and all these things that we know, dub, drum and bass music, and all these other genres that have like spring forth out of that approach to music that King Tubbys, Scratch Perry, my dad, and all these great ones had crafted. And yeah, it's just for me one of my favorites, sonically speaking, just as a fan of music, you know, just to listen. It puts you in a different time, but at the same time, it's just as fresh as if it was made yesterday. So when you listen to it, it sounds like you're taking a journey into that time when it was created. But at the same time, based on how ahead of their time they were and what they were doing, it just feels like it's something fresh, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I sometimes actually think that when I look back at some of the classic releases that we've had, you know, during the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, I almost feel as though the musicians were almost ahead of their time.
Definitely ahead of their time. I mean, as I said, the approach that Jamaican musicians took to music in terms of their productivity is very similar to what you find now, where it's like you have these streaming services where artists release music so much, where in Jamaica that was for, up to this day, it's still the same. Like the level of output of musicians, artists, labels is unmatched, I think, to any, you know, other genre. Because I mean, in one day you could have how much song coming out from different producers, different artists, and that's every day of the year, you know. So it's just that alone was ahead of itself, and being innovative in what they had to use. So Jamaica is what so-called third world country. So everything we did pretty much was, we had certain equipment and stuff, but it was mainly intuitiveness, you know, making innovations on what you have. A man like Tubbys rebuilding amplifiers, modifying things. Yeah. So it was really hands-on and creative to the most possible way. Like, I don't think you could get more creative than Jamaican music.
True, true. And I think what you said about the outputs as well over the years, you know, it's been phenomenal in that, okay, I know that we're living in a different world now with digital music and things streaming, but, you know, back in the heyday, the number of records that used to sort of get exported out of Jamaica was just phenomenal. And, you know, as a DJ myself, I could never keep up to date with it. I couldn't.
That's what I mean. So they were doing this way before they even had, there was a platform, because at that time, of course, records were selling. That was the main format of music. But even with that being considered, the level of output, and many of the producers were independent too. I mean, they had the bigger musicians and producers, of course, but there were so many levels of producers where every day I see a new record, you know, like every day I find a new record that I never heard of before. And I'm searching. Like I'm looking at other places and I still find many that I was like never heard that. So it's just to show you like a never-ending story.
I know. Do you know, I go through that same thing myself all the time in that, when you just about think that I've kind of got this particular artist catalogue covered, and then
that's what I mean.
You talk to someone or you see something on YouTube and you think, why haven't I got that?
And the thing is, because with a lot of the cases, even some of my dad's records, they were doing a lot of limited press of records. So they might do a thing for 200 copies or whatever, and then maybe don't press any for a good while. So just that alone makes it both rare and hard to really find every single thing. Like you have to go, it's like you'll always find something else. As I said, it's always more,
Yeah, no. I still find that to this day. So I get that. I totally understand what you're saying. Now, I know that coming up in a few weeks' time, we've got a really big project coming out. Addis Pablo meets Green Line Crew Uptown.
Correct.
How did creative come together? And let's share with our viewers what is this project about?
Well, this project is actually connected to the same thing we were just talking about, the King Tubbys meets Rockers Uptown album, of course, where Green Line remade the classic cassava piece rhythm, which is the King Tubbys meets Rockers Uptown rhythm also. So they laid this track, I can't even say how long it could have been, as much as 5 years ago, I think, with Horsemouth on drums in Jamaica, and Zeke Stern playing the keyboards and bass, etc. Then not too long after, around the same time, they had reached out to me, or even around the same time in collaboration, to produce a project. And we've pretty much been working since then on it. I recorded my melodica some time ago. And we've also, since then, have like Micah Shamaya, Mr. Williams, I forgot to mention earlier, Jabani, Medicine, and a few other guest artists on the project. So, we give thanks for it to finally be able to, be released, and we're looking forward to sharing it. We also have a video for the melodica version, which will be released probably by the end of next month. And that was also filmed by Tizzy Tokyo. So big up Tizzy again. On the visuals.
Yeah. Now, I know that Zeke from Green Line Crew, he's been putting out some really solid productions over the years. And was this a concept that he approached you with, or was this something that you had in your mindset as well?
Initially, he reached out to me for this project. We've worked on a few other things before, like collaboration with Mr. Williams. What's the name of the track again? It's released some time ago. The Town, what was it called? I had the 45. But we collaborated on a song with Mr. Williams around the same time. That one came out before, but we actually recorded this probably prior to that, around the same time. So they were both, being worked on, and that came out first, and now we have this project. But Zeke is a very talented producer, engineer. I definitely always check out his works, even when I'm, the ones that I wasn't a part of, but always like Midnight and many different, the Chronics, the Good Over Evil remixes. We actually contributed to that. The Sons of Dog, we did a mix on that. So we've been working many times over the years, and we actually have another project coming soon too, which is, just to give a little bit, is like a remix of the Human They'll Stop Them Rhythm, and we're kind of working on that next. So that's something down the pipeline.
Look forward to as well.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you've got some veteran musicians involved in the Addis Pablo meets Green Line Crew Uptown. Any other of the foundation musicians that have been involved in that project?
No, the main one was Horsemouth on the drums. Zeke took care of most of the other instruments, because it's like keyboards and bass and things like that. Not too many instruments, so to speak. So it's mainly a drum and bass style track. Keyboards, little guitar phrase, little lines and stuff on the melodica. So the main musician involved outside of Zeke was Horsemouth, but of course it's the great Horsemouth, so that's a lot,
Yeah, and I think that of the songs that I've heard so far, I think what I really like about it is that whilst it still maintains the roots of the cassava piece, it almost sort of adds like a different level for 2021, which I think is going to appeal to younger fans of the music as well. But at the same time, the older heads are still going to be able to appreciate it as well.
Yes. That I believe is the initial idea, which Zeke was working on it first to make it, both paying homage to the foundation, but at the same time carrying it into this time that we're now. And I think he definitely did a good job with that,
Yeah. So I know we're definitely going to be looking forward to that coming out later on in spring 2021.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I guess, you know, for yourself, I mean, that you're involved in so many different musical projects, because I know that you had I think it was a mixtape, Majestic Melodies, with
Yes, with
Music.
Equinox Music. Yeah, man. The Majestic Melodies mixtape was a great project. It initially came about through me and Gavin working over the years. Equinox, we've done a lot of collaborations. So the idea came about through my pretty much a mutual friend of me and Gavin's, who's also like a business manager of mine.
Mm.
And he just said like we should put together a project of some sorts. And initially it just developed into the mixtape idea, which we compiled different songs, some from Equinox, some from myself. Also classic songs like Earl Zero, Home, and, you know, Rockers tracks, Earl 16, Peaceful Man Xylophone, which was also featured on the Majestic or the King Alpha and Queen Omega EP, which I released not too long ago. So it also featured guests like Ola, Mr. Williams, Leela Ike, one of the only people. We did a few production, but one of the ones that released together. And yeah, it was a great project, you know, give thanks. And it was well received also, so, you know, I always appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that you're also working with Equinox right now, because I know that there's going to be another project that we could maybe just talk about that's coming out maybe later on in the year in 2021. Let's tell our viewers a little bit about the second project that you have forthcoming this year.
Yeah, so we have a new project coming out with Equinox, maybe even sooner than later, actually. It's some rhythms it's some remixes of classic Rockers tapes that I had actually worked on this a few years ago. I had presented a few things to Gavin, and he worked on some beats, and they were very, very great. One of them was actually featured on not the Majestic Melodies mixtape, but when he did the Mighty Crown and Sons of the mixtape, there was one of the songs was featured, and there was a freestyle by Massacre. And there's another one called Oh Baby that's there. Crazy. So we're going to be putting that out maybe by the end. Good say. Yeah, sooner than later. The day's still working on it, but yeah, sooner than later. But it's remixing classic Rockers rhythms, a few by Equinox and a few by myself, mainly instrumental and with like some guest vocals, but mainly an instrumental, you know, project.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a title for this second project then?
Not at the moment. It's still TBA, you know, to be announced.
Okay, to be announced. Okay, so we'll keep viewers in suspense on that one then.
Yeah, man, but it's gonna be great because Equinox as well is a very good friend and somebody who I admire a lot in terms of his production style over the years. Unique and dancehall in terms of having very original beats and an approach, and also when he does reggae, you know, our roots, he still takes the same approach. Also working with Shanique Marie, big up Shans, you know. So yeah, Bobby Blackbird, the whole Equinox crew.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So sounds like there's some pretty exciting projects forthcoming from yourself. And I know that obviously all of our viewers they can stay sort of connected with what's happening via your social media pages. And you also have a website as well, rockersinternational.com.
Rockersinternational.com, that's our main website for the Rockers International label. Of course, our stores in Jamaica and New York. Also have AddisPablo.com, you know. I just forgot to mention that I just realized that another song is coming out on Friday, which I was featured on. It's the remix of like Royalty with Protege and Popcorn. So Toddler T actually he produced a remix, and he reached out to me to add some Radica to it. And yeah, that's going to be coming out on Friday, I believe. So you can look out for that.
Look out for that as well then.
Yes.
So then.
Now, yeah, man, we're trying to keep it flowing, you know, because at this point, I just want to keep, I've always released a certain amount of music, but for this year, I just felt to really push it, you know.
Yeah. Now, when you were just mentioning the website, rockersinternational.com, you mentioned about the stores, plural. So obviously, anyone that's watching this will know of the legendary Rockers International store down on Orange Street. Big up Mitchie Williams every time, because
big up Mitchie.
He's kind of like doing, I think that, you know, every time when I go there, it just feels as though he's trying to create a vibe and try and keep things pushing in the right direction, because, you know, back in the heyday, there was so many record stores on that particular street. Now it's only Rockers International that stands alone. Yeah,
man. I mean, we give thanks to be able to have maintained over the years. My dad being able to set up a shop in the early 1970s with the good, you know, cooperation of the community, because of course he was a very, you know, he was pretty much downtown a lot, like coming from Randy's days and having a good relationship with various people there. So him being able to open that shop in his time and for us to be able to maintain it to this time, we give thanks. We refurbished it in the past, what was that, around 5 years ago maybe? Yeah. Like refurbished the structure to concrete, and we give thanks on Mitchell being there and maintaining, and also keeping the vibes and energy going. So yeah, man, we give thanks every time.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think that the murals and things that have been put up across the road, across the street, and things in recent years, that I think Big Youth had something to do with regards to updating some of the murals and things. That's really added a different sort of energy as well.
Yeah, man, the murals were put up for one day. Of course, the Augustus Pablo one was commissioned by our family some years ago. Dennis Brown ones, and more recently, the Greg Isaacs was done, I believe, by VP or the Greg Isaacs Foundation or so. Yeah. Also, in the past, 2 years ago, we did the 50th anniversary of Ireland, UK, with MTS Radio, and they commissioned the portrait of myself, Yami Bowl, Millie Small, Sean Paul, and then at the same time, Big Youths, created one for his Negus label and himself and his son. So we try to keep those energies of, that's in the air and do as much as we can. And honestly, there's much plans to continue to do that. There's always the overall situation with environment and certain things, but I think slowly, surely steps are being made to they've been doing some recent plaques down for like a lot of the, for Reggae Month, I did the MV, like some things for Studio One and Miss Pat, Vincent and Randy's and the whole thing. So we just want to keep continuing that effort because it's our heritage, it's our musical legacy, and downtown Kingston on a whole, from Trenchtown to Greenwich Farm to downtown, is pretty much like our Motown and Stax and all these places in America that are highlighted for, So that's our equivalent, and it's very important for us to maintain them and just keep it, keep it going.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that over these, I've seen so many sort of changes and improvements in that area, which have been put together, like, some of the projects you've mentioned. And I think it is almost like a magnet for people that love reggae music. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're a DJ or sound system, but, people visiting Jamaica need to come to places like Orange Street, Trenchtown, First Street, and, places that you're mentioning, because this is where our history was set.
Yeah, man, because these communities and environments are literally the place which the music was crafted, eventually sold, produced. Like every aspect of it was pretty much happening in that area, from the ground level of production to the pressing, to the distribution, to the sale. And so it pretty much is the mecca of reggae music,
So I guess that growing up, spending many days on Orange Street, you've got so many memories of seeing so many great legends passing through.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I mean, I was really on Orange Street so much that most of the times I wasn't. If you even asked the bigger brethren and stuff that were there from that time, we were just running around. Myself and my brethren, Big Skeishy's son, we would just be ISIS to also, and all our little, who was over our age, just running from Orange Street, that street, this street, all around, every lane, and, house and people's, so we weren't really noticing as much, but it was definitely it was even different back then because the place was more, I guess you could say united in a sense, because, in certain environments, there's like different issues as far as gangs and things like these, politics, all these different. So at that time, it was very much more easy just to move around. The place was more lively. And at that point, there was even still more active pressing, like in Jamaica. So the industry was still there as far as vinyl. So it was like always a scene down there, always exciting. You get your fruit juice and things like that next to the shop, and food, and that's everything, everything nice.
Yeah. Now, you also mentioned that there is now a Rockers International store in Brooklyn as well. That's something that I didn't know about.
Correct, yeah, man. So we recently started that since January, actually officially opened. Okay. It's something that we wanted to acquire for some years in terms of having a space to interact on this side for both meetings, for business purposes, and also to function as a store. And due to many opportunities coming along, and this one actually working out, ISIS is one who actually acquired it initially through being on the spots and looking, and just keep on having our eyes out and ears.
Okay.
And yeah, we're happy to have it in our hands now, and just continue to build it and kind of let people know that we have it now and just make the connection, you know, establish it.
Okay, so I guess Rockers is the spot to go now for music releases and also things like the merchandise as well.
Correct. So in this store now, we're focused both on the vinyl and merchandise, but highlighting the merchandise because this is our first location to really push it outside of Jamaica. And you can find like our latest, where we have available at least a few items, we call doing sales and things like that, just to kind of keep that connection with the people, you know?
Yeah. No, that's definitely good to hear. So it's definitely going to be one that I need to put on my list of places to visit because I think I initially got the reggae bug way back in very early 1990s, and Dub Vendor is the place responsible for what you see behind you because
that
was
the Dub Vendor, man, definitely.
That was the place that I kind of used to go as a kid, you know, traveling from where I live in the country down to London, collecting up a few pounds just to try and get some of the latest releases and things.
True. Yeah, man, the Vendor, the place, man. You think?
Yeah. And in fact, actually, thinking back now, it was probably around about the mid-90s. I remember sort of going into the Clapham Junction store. That's the one that I used to go to down in South London. I probably stood next to your father for about a good 1 hour. I didn't actually realize it was him until afterwards, because you've got to remember that back then we didn't really have the internet and things as strongly. So you didn't really get to
know how people look
like.
Yeah. That's funny. Wow, that's fun.
It was afterwards that I think John said to me, you know that was Augustus Pablo, and my face kind of almost dropped kind of thing back then because I was like, really? Wow.
That's crazy. I mean, and the funny thing about it is that if you had somehow started a conversation, it might, but it would be hard to tell, like, because he wasn't the kind of person that would, you know, definitely not hype, not none of those type of words. Like, he wouldn't announce. You'd have to know, or somebody have to say it, or you'd have to click to it. But if you didn't know he looked, you wouldn't just know by talking to him, or, you know, you'd have to come across, you know. So, but at least you got, many people didn't get the chance, you know, so you got a big moment, even if you didn't realize it, you know, but you were there.
I know.
Yeah.
I had a similar thing like this with Cox and Dodd as well, back in probably around the year 2000. I came to New York for the first time, and I kind of felt to myself that I had to go to the shop. And I remember sort of getting all these different trains, didn't know where I was going, finally made it into the shop and then bought some vinyls. And then I was kind of like inside of me, I was almost thinking, I was hoping to see Cox and Dodd here, but he wasn't there. And then as I was leaving, I turned around and he came from the back. So I went back inside just to see him. And, you know, it's just one of those chance meetings that you don't get every day in life.
True. Definitely. And it's being at the right place at the right time, as they say. So when you're on your mission and you're in the right energy and in the right places, things like that definitely will happen, man. Big up Studio One, Cox and that, the whole, They actually, if I'm not wrong, they're reopening the store in Brooklyn as well. So, you know, it's kind of it's good to see, like, because they're, you know, and we're so representing the, you know, on this side.
Yeah. No, that's good. Now, one final question that I wanted to ask you about, and this is, I think, really in terms of what the Pablo family are doing to maintain and preserve the legacy that's been set by your father, because I know that there are some plans for almost like a remembrance that you do every year in the summer.
Yes, correct. Yeah, we're going to be hosting a few events between our location, the new location in New York, whether it be virtual or, you know, just some small gatherings, bringing a few friends over just to kind of highlight his music and maybe show some different clips, whether it be performances, things like that. Usually we've, of course, in the past done physical concerts with the whole different events, but this year we're going to take a different approach, and we're currently just finalizing the whole rollout and everything, and definitely will keep you in the loop with the exact plans. But, you know, June 21st is his birthday, so we'll be doing things around that day.
On that date, yeah. Well, look, you know, I really appreciate your time today, and I think it's really exciting to hear about the upcoming projects that you've got. I know that the Addis Pablo meets the Green Lion crew, Rockers Uptown, that is definitely on my street, so I cannot wait to be able to start playing that on the radio and things as well.
Yes, man. And hopefully, I mean, I didn't mention talking to Zeke about the vinyl, but we'll probably have some of that coming as well, some physical copies later down the line, you know?
Yeah. Okay, well, no, do you know what? I really give thanks for your time today. A closing question for you. What advice or what inspiration would you give to people that might be watching that are wanting to take their first steps into becoming a musician?
Well, the best advice I could give from myself to anyone interested, or even who's doing music already, or whatever the case is that you keep, you know, I would say the best thing is just perseverance, you know, and practice, and also love and appreciation for what you do, and others who do it as well, who help you, your team or family, whoever it is that supports you. And I think with that, that can take you across the world and further, you know, beyond the sky. The sky is the limit. Once you keep, there's many other things as well, but those are some of, you know, that I would suggest.
Sound advice. Addis, we give thanks for your time today. One love.
All right, give thanks. Best up, brother. Respect.
Cool.
Reggae Interviews. Word Sound Power.